I was trying to give a few extra moments for the arrival of everyone who wished to participate in this meeting and this, I hate to use the word seminar, hopefully it's an educational experience. Our original panel was consist of myself, Red Bates, Gloria Roth, and Wayne McDonald, and due to personal reasons, Wayne nor Gloria could be here. So you have myself and Red Bates. Red, as you know, or may or may not know, was given the monumental task of putting together the 25-week Short and Learn to Dance program, which we consider vital in certain areas around the country and around the world. As a little bit of an introduction, I'm not going to go into too much how this particular list was created. If you've attended any of the other meetings having to do with the Short and Learn to Dance program, the history of that program has been gone into quite thoroughly. I will say it was, as you know, based on frequency of calls, and the reason for was that in certain areas the mainstream program was not effective and was not satisfying the needs of that given area. In other areas, the mainstream program was totally adequate. And the one thing I want to emphasize over and over and over, if I have to, is that this is a tool, an optional tool. If all you need is a hammer in your area, and that hammer is the mainstream list, use the mainstream list. But if you need a screwdriver, this is what we're going to give you right here. In Houston, Texas, the mainstream list is not effective. No one is sticking to the mainstream list. It's effective there. In Manitoba, Canada, the mainstream list is perfect. They don't need this. And I want to emphasize this is optional. This is not a hardcore list. It's not only optional, it's experimental. It's a trial thing. And if you don't need it in your area, that's terrific. And it goes back to the old saying, if you don't have something good to say, don't say anything. All right? What I would like is to have this program to have a chance in certain areas where it's vitally needed. And the areas where it's not needed, terrific. Use what you've got. If the 6-week community dance program works, great. If the mainstream list works, great. If just the basics list work, that's terrific too. We have these tools available to you, and just because this program is not applicable to your area, please give it a chance to survive in other areas where it is necessary. Where the reason for my saying this is that in some areas around the country, you can teach 41 weeks of mainstream and graduate a class that can dance mainstream from every conceivable position you can imagine. And they have no place to dance because nobody dances that program without throwing in 4 or 5 or 6 of the popular plus programs. It's wrong, granted, but you're not going to change human nature, and you're not going to stop those people from calling those figures. And our job is to offer a product to our dancers in order to gain more dancers, and that's the bottom line. If you read the report from Legacy last year, they showed an absolutely atrocious attrition rate, dropout rate of dancers, and their complaints were it's too long, it's too complicated, I can't give it that much time. And yet you say, well, fine, we'll just teach them the basic program. That would be great if the callers who were calling would stick to that, but they don't. They use the crutch of a teacup chain, of a diamond circulate, of a whatever it might be. And in theory, it's using certain programs that we had is terrific, but this is real life. And this Short and Learn to Dance program is a real life program in some areas. And the bottom line is we need more bodies in square dancing. We need more fun in square dancing. And it is a recreation. So I implore you, if this program does not suit your area, fine. Try not to badmouth it and give it a chance to work. And that's all I ask. Now, our basic approach this morning is what the object of this, the implementation of this Short and Learn to Dance program. What we've done is go through and try to break down the entire program over the 25-week teaching period into which figures we feel would be best taught during which week, throwing in which weeks should be review time, dance time, and so on. Bear in mind, now, we do not have a handout. The reason for that is when we put out a handout, a lot of people say, all right, this is etched in stone. This is merely our suggestion. I think it is important to note that I wrote Red, and I said, send me what your ideas are, how it should be broken down. I'll compare it to mine, and we'll try to come up with an average. And they were alike, almost syllable for syllable, from Houston and Boston. Okay? Now, just because they matched does not mean it's absolutely right. So these are suggestions. They're what works for us. If you want to make adjustments and so on to fit your area, I think it's very important that you do so. These are only suggestions. They're ideas. It's a guideline from which you can work. I have a copy up here if you want to come after the meeting and jot down in case you don't get it all in the notes, whatever. Fine. But I'm not going to give a handout because sure as heck if I do, photocopies made is passed out and they say this is the law, and this is not the law. This is a suggestion. And if it seems like I'm harping on that, I am. Because I want, when you leave here, to know that this is only a suggested experimental option. It is not the law. Okay? So, what we're going to do, we're going to combine two things. And I'm going to do one other little introductory talk and then explain this. We're combining the implementation week by week of this Short and Learn to Dance program with some teaching hints, because it is the overall feeling of almost all of us on the board and well, a lot of people throughout the membership, that one of our problems that we have is that a lot of the people who are teaching our classes need assistance and help in how to teach, all right? Sharing of ideas. All right, I'm sure that there are little tricks and things that you do when you teach your classes. I would like to be a fly on the wall because I'll steal anything I can get that's good, that's going to help me teach my classes. Likewise, we have some things here, just little things. 90% of them you may already know, but I'm going to throw them out at you anyway. And as we go through week by week, I'm going to try to hit what I have found, purely personal, what I have found to be the problem areas in teaching these various figures. If you want to make notes, copy them down and use them, I wish you would. If you don't, God bless you, okay? But we feel our dancers need to be taught better. We need to be more aware of the quality of our teaching so that if we turn out good dancers, our attrition rate will go down, and we won't lose these dancers. But you know as well as I, when we graduate them, we give them the diploma, we say, hey, super. And they go dance, and they get embarrassed, and they get blown away. They quit. They quit. And as simple as that. And they're not going to come back and tell you why they quit, because they don't care. They just quit. They got embarrassed. It's too tough. They don't want to get embarrassed. This is a recreation. So they quit. You know? And that's what we're trying to eliminate. And if we improve the quality of our teaching, we feel like we'll reduce that. So we're going to combine these two things in implementing this program and then going into some of the little hints on the problem areas of some of the figures to be taught. During this area, if you have questions, stick a hand up, okay? This is an open session. It is not a lecture, please. And if you have questions, I don't care what they are, please ask, all right? And speaking of that, before we get started, anybody have any questions so far? Okay. Mr. Red Bates.
I'm alive, I guess you're here, yeah, okay. I've used the program for 2 years. Little jump on everybody else because I knew it was coming, I guess. But I have a situation in my own area that I call for plus clubs. And for years it's been a problem. How do I get my class into this plus situation without losing half of them in the process? And so it kind of fit right into what seemed to be a big demand at the last convention for this kind of thing. I don't know how many were here last year. Yeah, we have a big turnover, so that's a problem, because you really weren't in on the reasons why this thing happened in the first place. It was almost overwhelming last year in several of the sessions that discussed this problem, that CALLERLAB do something about it. Okay, so we were charged with that responsibility. And we were to come up with a list that really took the popular calls that are being done throughout the country, putting them on a list, and hopefully this list would be a start at least in the direction of solving some of the problems in the plus areas. How many of you call in a predominantly plus area? Good. So one other question, how many are using the program? Some of you, okay. My apologies for the thing coming out late. We had a deadline of August, if you remember, 15th, which really was unrealistic because of the amount of work that is necessary to do that. So we, of course, ended up in December before you got the final list. And some of you had started your classes already, I know. So that was a problem. What basically transpired as far as I did make out, and I have a suggested lesson plan, okay? But as Wade said, we don't want this to go out of here saying that CALLERLAB put their stamp on any suggested lesson plan, okay? We're not at that point. And whether we ever will be or not, I'm not sure. But your lesson plan, if you are already teaching mainstream, would not be a heck of a lot different than taking the mainstream list up to a point, okay? At certain places on the list, however, we bring in the plus calls. And I've done this, and there's no problem at all in doing it. You bring in track 2, for instance, and they love it, you know. And if you bring it in at the right point in your lessons, on the particular lesson plan that I have put together here, it comes in, let's see where it is, at lesson 11, okay? And at that point, we've already been through the double pass-through, so everybody's in this ready to go with track 2 because they're all set up for it. And they go right into it with no problem at all. They don't know that track 2 is a plus call. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to stand there on the stage and tell them that either. Okay? Single circle to an ocean wave, which is another one of the plus calls. That comes in just before I want to get them in, getting them into ocean waves. So they have another way to get into ocean waves. And it just slides right in there. In fact, it's a very easy call to teach. Those of you, I'm sure, know that. So the calls are worked into the program that way. And if you look at the list, we have 8 calls that were picked. You say, why those 8 calls? I use this call, I use that call. Those calls were taken from a frequency distribution of tapes from callers all over the United States and even some from Canada as to actually what the calls on the plus list were that people are using. Okay, now I know some people may say, well, I use Relay the Ducey and I use Coordinate a lot, but when you take a broad picture of that, those figures aren't used a great deal at the plus level. And I've had guys come up to me that gave me the tape and tell me, hey, that's not right, I use a lot more calls than that. And I show them their frequency distribution, because we have it down, you did so many right and left throughs, you did so many of this, you did so many of that, right down the list, the entire list. Now that has been accomplished by me and a few other people in a 25-week period. At that period, what I do is to graduate them right into the club. Okay? And then I provide, in my situation, I'm not saying you can do this, workshops for them right after that. And this way, I teach some of the things that I think are important for my people right away so that brings the club together. Now, I called a dance with my people. We had 28 squares. And we put the class right into that. And I stopped during the evening, I said, can you people point out to me which are the class members, you know? And they were hard-pressed to do that. Now, this is a club that's not new. This club is 25 years old. These people have been dancing a long time. So it's possible, okay? I know it's possible from my own experience. Now, I know you'll have to tailor your own situation to this thing. And you're going to have to be a little clever in how you call your dancers after you get through, because you're going to have 8+ figures to work with, right? And you're going to have to use those figures so that you call a dance that the rest of the club finds interesting. If you rely on names, you know, like Relay the Doocy to make your dance interesting, well, then you might have a little problem. But if you take and do a little more planning of your dances, you can do it. Okay, after my workshops, which go on, I will keep adding more plus figures. And of course, eventually you've got them all. Let me backtrack on one thing which I think might be an idea at least. When I run my classes, I combine on the same night with a plus workshop for my club. So I start in September, and I work from 7 to 10:30. From 7 to 9, or 8:45, is the class. And you'll notice that we said 25 2-hour sessions. At 8:45, we have a tip, which includes those people coming in for the plus workshop, which goes till 10:30. Now, they usually come in about 8:30, and they can square up in the back of the room and do whatever the class is doing. So in the beginning, of course, there's a big division, because these people are doing, you know, the basic stuff. But as the lessons progress, the workshop and the class come together, so that 15-minute, that tip in the at 8:45 becomes more interesting for everybody. And what I'm finding is towards the end, the plus workshop people that want to come to brush up or something are coming earlier and earlier, so they're getting more of the mainstream figures or whatever that they need to brush up on. So it serves, without putting pressure on anybody, a place to come and maybe help out some of your dancers who have fallen by the wayside or something like that, who need to brush up, and they're afraid to come to a plus dance where they're going to get shot down. And as you know, a workshop says to somebody, I can goof at a workshop, but at a dance, I should be pretty good, you know. I don't know if you have that experience or not, but we have people who come to workshops who won't come to a dance. And that's not only at plus level, that's at higher levels too. We have a question. There's no angels. Well, there are angels for the class only. Everybody pays. Yeah, everybody pays. The class you're talking about now? Yeah. Okay, there's no dance. This is an entire workshop. The first hour or 2 hours is a class. Brand new people. Okay? Are we communicating, or is that... Okay. Then at 9 o'clock, you see, officially, I start a plus workshop for those people who come in. And all these people are people who are... I just announce it to the club. I say, we're going to have these plus workshops, you know. If you want to come on over, you know. And a lot of them do, because they're not too sure of some of the plus figures, and or they want to brush up, or they just like to get out and dance a little bit, you know. They pay. I have 3 couples that are angels. Yeah. Yeah, I don't... That's an individual problem you have. I don't have that problem. All these people pay the same amount for that entire evening, and they can come at at 7 o'clock and stay till 10:30, or they can come in at 8:30 and whatever they want to do. And the same with the class. Now, in the class, some of my class people are sharp, They learn fast. And I have Square that stayed for the Plus workshop. And I tell them then, I use numbers to mix people up. In the class has the numbers. The Plus people don't. So if they want to come to the class, they square up by themselves in the back of the hall. And I don't care how many come or how many do that. And I don't even pay any attention to them until 8:45. And I say, okay, it's a freebie tip. We're all going to dance together, and I mix them all together. And I call what I've done for the class. At 9 o'clock, the thing changes. I give out numbers for the Plus people. The class can't have a number. If the class people want to stay, let's say we're now in February or March, okay, and they've learned quite a bit. And these gung-ho people want to stay. Beautiful. They get a little edge on learning some of these Plus figures that I'm teaching at the Plus workshop. They square up in the back, so they goof up. And I don't pay any attention to them at that point. I pay attention to my Plus workshop for these people. Okay, at the end of the 25 weeks, this thing has come together so that, it's really one united group. I put 31 couples in my club doing that last year. We didn't have too many for the class, that wouldn't support it. You couldn't pay the bills. But combining the two, we could. Now, that's just an idea I throw out. After the 25 weeks, though, everybody goes together for the same Plus workshop. It all comes together. And I've got a pretty strong group dancing by then. In fact, they're stronger than some of the people that are in the club. To be sure, I have not covered all the Plus figures at that time for the class people, okay? Those things are workshopped after that. And anything on the mainstream list that I left out, such as Dixie Style of an Ocean Wave, which if you notice was left out, and it was a question in several of the sessions, I teach that. I go into my left-handed stuff from there. The reason that was left out is because that put you in left-hand wave. So we left that out till later. We don't do any cross movements either. I keep it pretty simple, straightforward stuff during that first 25 weeks, or I would never get through it. That's a fact.
One of the things that I can see, because obviously you have a club that is a pure Plus club, okay, which is probably the biggest difficulty that we will encounter in this now. Excuse me. I have one of each. I have a club that is straight Plus, okay? There is no way I can graduate a class from this group to put into that club. There just is no way, okay? And that's as simple as that. I would love to say, I got the secret solution. I don't. That doesn't exist. Thursday night, however, now the Monday night club is mine, all right? I run it. Call a club. Thursday night, I have a dancer club I've called for 11, 12 years. It is soft Plus. And true, in that club, we dance every Plus move, barely and hanging on by the fingernails, but they do dance it because this is what they want. They want to call themselves a soft Plus club. I sat down with the board, the officers from that club, with this program, because I teach their classes for them, and they run the class from 7 to 8:30, the club from 8:30 till 10:30. And I said, now, this is what I want to teach. When this class graduates, they will be able to dance 90% of everything we're already doing in this club. All right, better than probably some that are in the club now. Upon graduation, all right, which is coming up the end of this month, I would like at that point to take this same time we've been doing for class time. And we'll continue it on, but I'm going to make that a little Plus workshop, all right, except shorten it to an hour, 7 to 8. And any club members who want to come to that little 7 to 8 workshop, don't cost you a damn, all right? All right. For the class, we put a nominal charges on dance time, whatever. I try to make it as easy as I want. And right now, I could probably charge a little more money. That's not my objective. My objective is to have a transition from one to the other. But all I know is that when this class graduates, I told my club, yes, I will not call the full spectrum of Plus here anymore. But the club is barely hanging on doing that anyway. But the 8 figures that we have, I can call all of those. And what happens by it being on dance night, I start calling from 7 to 8:30 on the classes. By about 5 till 8, most of the club is dwindling in, and they start filling in. I'm not telling them they're improving their plus dancing. They aren't admitting they're improving their plus dancing. We both know it, and it's just understood, and it's just happening. And it's one of these things what we call an evolution. Sometimes if you let evolution take place, it solves a myriad of problems. And so by the time when this class graduates into this month, they will go into the club. Now some of the weaker members of the club don't have to have the pressure of knowing a relay of the Ducey or getting pulled through it anymore. But they'll know these 8 figures cold because they've been coming over and helping with the class and so on. Then this gives them an opportunity to go back and maybe, instead of learning that plus move on the fly like they've had to, now they can come in an hour early, get a little walk through, and get that done. All right? But I think utilizing this is a matter of judgment and a matter of need. If you have good, strong mainstream clubs in your area that the callers are calling mainstream, period. This doesn't fit. And if they're full plus clubs, you're not going to take a graduate from here and put them in there. It doesn't fit. But in my area, it's a necessity. 3 of my clubs are soft plus clubs, and this is what they have to do. And the dancers may go to a dance and break down once a night on a fan the top. But I figure that's better than breaking down 15 times a night on the flip the diamond. And this is it's basic judgment. Again, it fits my area, and we found a number of areas. So I think it's a matter of a judgment thing, and it's also a matter of honesty. Sit down with your club and be honest and say, this is a program. Do you need it? Do we need it? Can we implement it? They say, no, we don't want it. So, sayonara, bye, leave it alone, and do what fits. Do what fits. It's a matter of judgment. It's a tool. All right, we're going to hit that playing.
Any questions from anybody? In my lesson plan, to get down to more specifics, the first night, number 1, okay? We have 3 fun nights, by the way. And the third one is closed, then the class is closed. And really I count that as my first lesson. I fool around the fun nights, give them a good time, make sure they want to come back again, you know. But lesson 1, we go through circle, left and right, forward and back, do-sa-do, swing, promenade. We do Alaman left, grand right and left. And I get into some stars, simple star figures. And you know, I'm sure the same with you. One year I might get through a little more than I do another year, depending on the group and so forth. So that's not cast in stone by any means. If you can't be flexible, that's again why we don't want to pass something out to you. You know, there are people who gotta go by the list, and by God, they'll, you know, for some reason they can't vary. Part of you've got to be able to be flexible and change. If you're not able to change in this life, you're going to just stagnate and die. You know, and that's the truth. And square dance activity has been that way I've been in the activity for longer than I'd care to say. Since 1948. So I've seen the whole thing.
You're old.
I'm old, yeah. Anyway, in lesson 2, we then, of course, back off and I teach 3 figures. Okay? One of them is pass through, and another is turn back, and they're you know, how long does it take you to teach a pass through? You know, of course you've got to go back and review what you did in lesson 1. You know, but in lesson you don't have to review too much on circle left and right. You know, some of these figures are almost you tell them what to do in the figure, and I don't know as I call them really figures. You know, so lesson 3, we go ahead with courtesy turns and ladies' chains, and I teach the courtesy turn out of the ladies' chain. You probably do the same thing, and so forth. So really, I've got a setup where I teach 3 or sometimes 4 figures each night until lesson. Is it 4? 4, yeah, right. Lesson 4 becomes a review lesson. Okay, And that lesson is spent reviewing all the material that's taken place to that point. And I use the grand square there as a kind of a fun thing to do, okay? We teach the grand square. And it doesn't take me too long to teach a grand square. But it's a little frosting on the cake, you know, from a kind of review kind of thing. Gets kind of deadly sometimes. Okay, then we go on to lesson 5, and again we're talking about 4 figures. But one of those figures is lead to the right, and the other is circle to a line, you know, so it's really kind of a combined figure. And that goes on about the same way until we get to, where's the second one here? 10, not lesson 10. Okay? In lesson 10, I introduce the first plus figure. Nobody knows that it's a plus figure, and they don't really make a point of it, you know. And it's single circle to an ocean wave. You know, join both hands, circle halves, you know, you got a wave. It's a very difficult figure. Grand right and left is harder. You know. So, even though it's plus, and, you know, I'm really disturbed when people, you know, if it's an A1 figure, they think it's got to be hard. If it's a plus figure, it's, you know. AC-doocy is not a hard figure. It's on the advanced list. Just because a figure's on the advanced list doesn't make it harder than the list before. It's just where they happen to be. So there's our first plus figure that comes in. In lesson 11, I go into track 2. Because at that point, I've taught the double pass-through and so forth. In lesson 12 becomes a review. And this, I'm telling you this because this is the way we get through the thing in 25 weeks. And lesson 13, again, we go back to teaching 4 figures. One of them is veer left. And that's hard to do. It takes you about 2 minutes to teach veer left. Because it's a directional call. You know, you veer left. What else can you do, you know? In lesson 14, I get into circulates. Now, you get in, that takes a little teaching, okay? Circulates to get the idea. But there's no split. And if you look, have you looked at this list at all? Okay, you note on the back it says we don't use any splits or any crosses or any left-hand movements. Once you get into that kind of thing, then you're going to have some different kinds of problems. Okay? And we go on the same vein. In lesson 15, in my own case, I review the circulates again pretty carefully because I think I want them to get the idea of circulating down pretty well. I think that's a kind of a basic thing that leads into a lot of other things. So I'm up to lesson 15 now, and we go on and teach till lesson 20, which becomes another, well, I kind of look at it as a point where I bring in something that's a little different. I bring in load the boat. Now, you may want to do that at a totally different time, and that's perfectly all right. Use your own judgment when you bring these things in, but they can be worked into the program, and they add spice to what you're doing. Everybody wants to know how to load the boat. They hear about it all the time. You know, load the boat's a big deal. It's a prestige call. So I bring it in there. That gives me 4 or 5 weeks to practice with it, use it, you know. Lesson 21, I do extend the tag, and I do relay the doocy. You can do it earlier if you like, or later or whatever. In lesson 22, I've got my diamonds done. That leaves me lessons 23, 24, and 25 with nothing to do, which is a lie. Because I have 3 sessions in which I go back and review the figures that they are having difficulty with. Okay, in other words, you can tell by watching your group where the problems are. So I've got 3 sessions that with nothing new to teach. And that's why I say I can do it in 25. And I was never noted for being a speedster either, so some of you probably could do it in less. But remember now that we're talking about straight stuff. We're not talking about you never could do this going into the DBD. I'm not happy with that term myself. Yeah, right. But anyway, that's basically what I do, and after that I've explained to you we go into some workshops from then on out. Wait.
Okay, thanks, Red. Now, the question where I'm sitting where you are would be, okay, what if I got a real slow class or whatever, or maybe I have trouble teaching this quickly or whatever. This is, I think, as Red said, this is an average. Fast teachers can teach faster than this. I don't believe anyone will have a problem teaching this material in 25 weeks if you know your material. I heard an interesting comment the other day. Somebody says, well, what's a good way, what's the best way to practice, or what's good tips for a new caller to teach a new class? They didn't like my answer because, in my opinion, that situation should not exist. Should not exist. If you are learning how to call, how in goodness sakes are you going to teach a dancer how to dance? All right? If you are a caller who is not familiar with your material and you can't dance it, how the heck are you going to call it? Much less teach it. All right? And I think it's time that we leaned on our experienced callers. And I don't mind saying this is one of the few times in my life I can be holier than thou, because I teach at least 1 to 2 classes a year. It's time we lean on our experienced callers who say, well, I've been calling 15 years, I don't teach classes. Well, bull. It's time our experienced callers did teach our classes, and it's time our experienced callers did teach our new callers. And I'm getting a little bit testy about it, because it's time we shared information and shared knowledge. And the guys who have the years of experience and have the knowledge, pass it on, all right? And this is not a competition. It's a matter of recreation where we should share the information. And I think you should go back. I think our dancers should demand that the callers have the experience and the capability to teach a class. Now, I learned to teach. I was fortunate. I happen to have a father who calls, or he's been calling for years and years and years and years and years. And he happens to be an excellent teacher. And he calls what he calls defensive teaching, or I've lost the word. I never claimed to be smart. Preventive teaching. If you know you're going to have a problem down the line, all right, and if you call, you know where the problems are. I mean, I'm not even going to ask for a vote. We all have problems with turn-throughs. We all have problems with slide-throughs. We all have problems with circulates. Known fact, all right? Why wait till they're dancing to correct the situation? Correct it in class. Correct it before you do, all right? I've got 3 pages of just hints, all right? Lesson by lesson as we go through. There are things I know most of you use, most of them. If you don't use them, at least you've thought of them. And the things that work for me, I want to throw them out. If you have no use for them, don't write them down. If you want to write them down and maybe try them, if there's something, maybe one thing in it you haven't heard of might shorten your teaching program by 30 minutes. If it does, terrific. These are things that work for me. All right, obviously on the introduction, your obvious courtesies, use of deodorant, smile, be friendly, no alcohol, long sleeve shirts for the men, maybe a little square dance history, and create enthusiasm. This is a fun recreation. I see some warm-ups by the callers who teach that says, now I'm going to teach you, and this is going to be perfect, and you're going to be great. Well, that's terrific for the Marines, all right? This is supposed to be a recreation, a happy, fun time. After you get into the things, one of the problems, Lord, I know we almost had World War III over here on where you hold your hands, okay? Standardize your hand holds up front, all right, for the handshakes, for pull-bys, for the forearms, for turning movements, and the ocean waves with the palms, all right? Get it up front. Tell them this is the hands, the 3 hand holds we're going to use. Tell them what the purpose is, all right? If they know every time they're going to pull somebody by, they're going to use a handshake, they'll get in the habit right up front of doing that. So go over the standardization. The most, what I call the always group. The more things you have that are always the same, the better off you're going to be. It gives the dancer something to hang their hat on, all right? Emphasize dancing to the beat of the music, All right? Sometimes when I get the first night, I turn all the treble off and all the bass up, and all I want them to hear is boom, boom, boom. You put your foot to that floor, the beat of the boom. All right? One little tip I tell them is your foot never breaks contact with the floor. You don't walk, you slide. Two things happen. First of all, you don't take huge, big steps, and second of all, it neutralizes the length of the step, and the guys don't outrun the girls anymore. All right? Because you ever decide to take about a 9-foot stride when you're sliding on the ground, it's very uncomfortable. First place, you look a little strange. So the guys won't do that, all right? So you keep your foot on the floor. And these I realize things you probably already know, but think about them, all right? So you standardize the size of those steps by keeping your steps small. This is not the Grand Prix, okay? You emphasize firm dancing. Women don't like to dance with a limp dish rag, but that doesn't mean get a death grip on their hands either. So it's a firm. You can be firm and loose with your handholds, all right? And something my daddy told me years ago, if you teach a dancer to dance to the beat of the music, the difference between his left and the right, and a thorough knowledge of the difference between 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4, nothing else exists in this entire recreation. It does not exist. That's all there is. So right up front, I teach my dancers, if I'm facing that wall, that's wall 0. If I turn 1/4, I turn 1 wall. If I turn 2/4, I turn 2 walls. If I turn 3/4, I turn 3 walls. Now, I have to admit, one of the classes I taught in Houston, one of the first ones, the first dance they went to was at the Dallas Convention Center, and it's as round as a ball, and they gave me a little hard time about it, all right? But for the most part, it works, all right? But if you can teach them, and I don't want them to turn a quarter and with a hand up and saying, somebody please stop me when I get to the right place. They should be able to turn a quarter on their own because they know where it is. Try and experiment sometime. Get 10 of you new dancers, haven't had lessons, line them up in a row and say, all right, everybody turn around. You'll get a minimum of 2 responses, and it could be 3 to 4 responses. Somebody will turn this wall, some will turn face there, somebody will turn all the way around and come back this way, somebody will turn over there. English words have several interpretations, and you should have a minimum of 3, 4, or 5 ways of teaching every figure, right, in order to communicate with those people. If you sit and read the CALLERLAB definition, that definition was not written for dancers. It was written for callers. It's written in our language. You need to interpret that definition for your dancer so they understand. I mean, I can sit up very holier than thou and say, okay, the definition of right and left through is blah, 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 blah. I've done my job. If you don't understand it, tough. Well, that's great, I suppose, if you like your ego pumped that much, but you're not communicating with those dancers. You're not teaching them anything, and so they're not going to dance to you. Communicate with those dancers. Interpret, explain, teach. Emphasize that you don't dance with your hands. You're not jerking and swinging everybody around. You dance from the waist down. You dance with your feet. We've been doing that for thousands of years, dancing with our feet. The hands are a courtesy. They're a courtesy to touch, to identify, to locate. A courtesy. You dance with your feet. Movement by your body is caused by your feet, not because some guy gets hold of your hand and jerks you along. You dance with your feet, not your hands. Emphasize dancing with your head up, not down here looking at the ground to see how many dust particles there are. Get your head up. If somebody sees somebody coming at them, they're more likely to do something with them. So dance with that head up, looking at people. Use your eyes. There are folks there. Look at them. Emphasize touching hands wherever possible, on both sides. The world, and I don't mean to discriminate, 2 of my children are left-handed, okay? But the world is right-handed in this country. It is right-handed. And sometimes they forget this thing hanging off their left shoulder is even there, all right? They need to touch on both sides. They got people all around them. Get them used to touching. Have those hands where they can identify, locate. It's a contact sport. And emphasize moving forward. There's only 2 moves that allow you to move backwards. A grand square and a do-si-do. If you're fortunate enough to have people do a do-si-do like it's written. All right? That's the only 2. Any other time you take a step backwards, you're wrong. Always you're wrong. That's it. And how many times you stand first? It happens every time. And I get one of my ladies and I said, if I put a pole here and told you to walk around it, would you walk around it rear end first? I don't think so. But they'll do it in that ocean wave. Emphasize this is a forward-moving sport. Follow your nose. Move forward all the time. My dad, and I hate to lay all this on Doc, but he told me, he says, you know you can get in any square, and if you take small steps straight ahead, and veering slightly to the right, you will stumble into the right position 90% of the time. Because everything we do is clockwise to the right and forward. And you just wander into the right place by mistake half the time. Get your dancers moving forward. All right, I'm just going to move along here on a pass-through. Simple move. Simple, you pass right shoulder and you pass by this person. But notice your dancers, do they go past each other like 4 feet and they're stuck way out yonder? You know, it's like I'm on a roll, don't stop me now, okay? All you got to do is pass right shoulders, just enough to get past each other. Keep your squares tight, keep them small. I tell them, I'm a lazy caller and I want lazy dancers. Don't do anything you don't have to do. If I don't dial your number, don't answer the phone, okay? Don't do any more than you got to do. And when you pass through, just pass through. Don't pass through and take 9 steps. But I know this is going to be a problem, so I try to make notes and prepare for it ahead of time in the teach. On a U-turn back, all right, we tell our dancers you got to turn 180 degrees and first face the other way. That's great. But it matters that you turn towards your partner. It matters, all right? The only differentiation between a U-turn back and a peel-off is the way you turned. You know, if you make a U-turn back, it's towards your partner because you want to keep her. If you peel off, you turn away from your partner because you don't want her anymore. That's the only difference there is. So utilize it. Make sure those dancers know which way you turn on a U-turn back. Again, the square stays small and tight. You don't lose them. You take some of these new dancers, and as long as nobody's touching them, and you put them on the outside, they're going to wander off somewhere. They're going to get lost. Keep them in there where they can control each other. These are, again, little tips. On the right and left through. The men do not grip the lady's hand on the courtesy turn. And next thing you know, the courtesy turn that lady, and she is trying to get her hand loose from this clown because he's in a state of panic, and he's got a handshake grip on her hand behind her back. Okay? All right? Again, I'd always tell my ladies, make sure you put that hand down there on your waist, because wherever you put it, he's going to put his hand. You got a target. You don't put it there, and he gets to select his own target. Think about it, ladies. All right? Ladies on a chain, use the handshake pull, not 2 fingers. When you promenade with a lady and she gives you the tips of these fingers to hold, drives me crazy. I want a whole hand, okay? When you do a pull by, handshake, just a regular handshake and go, not one of these, all right? Sashay, something to drive the women crazy. When you're circling left and you say, roll away a half sashay, and the guy won't slow down, and she's on the dead run trying to pass him, and he's just having himself a good time going around that square. When you roll away, fellas, stop, roll away, and then continue circle. They're small points, but these are the points where the squares break down. And the less they break down, particularly early, the better, the more their confidence is, the more they're likely to learn. And I tell you, I made every mistake that is conceivable to make, I think, in class. That's what these come from. When you sashay, standing still, there are only 2 positions standing there. I'm in one, she's in one. If I'm going to roll her away, I'm not going to stand here like a lump and put her over here. That position doesn't exist. I have to slide into hers as she rolls over here. As you know, you only have 8 positions at a time on that floor. And if somebody's going to move from one position to another, someone has to move into that vacated position. You can't just create. You know, you ever watch a square who's not taught that way, and as they dance, the whole square will move across the floor because somebody's not moving over. All right? On a do paso, forearm turns, not little pinky fingers. They're turning movements like Alamans, right hand turns, left hand turns, forearm moves. Lead to the right is not half a figure. It is not lead right circle to a line is a figure. Lead to the right is a figure. If you teach the dancers up front. Now, you might say, well, every time I say lead to the right, I say circle to a line. That's great if you're the only human they ever dance to. If they dance to me, they're going to hear lead right, right and left through. Lead right, veer left. Lead right, pass through. Whatever. Lead right is a figure. So teach it that way. Bend the line. No one backs up on bend the line. How many times you watch your squares go, and either you've noticed or dancers come up and say, how come every time I bend the line, we're 9 feet from that other line? It's because somebody's not working as a pivot. They're backing up. And when you bend the line, that inside person is a pivot. They don't leave where they are, and the ends move around it. But what happens is they back up, and then here they come again, try to get the lines up. It's a problem that you know is going to happen, so you plan on it in advance. Jump in any time, old sport. Right. What am I here? Oh, the hands when you do a star through. You ever watched a guy 6'6" and a little girl about 4'10" do a star through? She almost loses an armpit. All right. Your hands are only a courtesy on a star through. It's not turn around. It's a hand. You're dancing with your feet. You touch that hand, you come under. Okay. Or walk around. So walk around the corner, seesaw, partner, so on. It's a forward-moving maneuver. It's not a do-si-do. It's a forward-moving maneuver. Even though you're turning your body, you're following your nose. The couple that split, when you have heads, whatever, step in the middle, face your corner, split 2, round 1. The couple that's been split, if you don't tell them, they're going to stand there like a lump. They're not going to slide back together and take hands. Tell them to slide back together and take hands right up front. Then you don't have the problem later on. A wheel around when you're promenading toward the center. Everything in this world operates toward the center of square dancing except for peel-off, all right? And sometimes cast-off. But work toward the center of your square. Have your dancers moving to the center of the square. It keeps them nice and tight. So your wheel around is toward the center. On bars, it's a forearm turn. But they're so interested in that sometimes, they won't make the star contact in the middle. Again, I use the term flesh. Touch flesh every chance you get. I want to touch hands, something. I want to be connected, all right? Emphasize a loose hand grip on box to net, all right? Or any of the other movements that are involved turning around the hands. If you've ever had a lady get a death grip on those 2 fingers, it will bring you to your knees. But if you teach the loose but firm grip up front, you don't have a problem with that. Emphasize the release on the shoot the star. When you shoot the star, don't hang on for dear life. Same with the turn through. After you finish the maneuver, let them go. One basic I teach, not a basic, it's a rule, right up front. Lesson 1. Anytime you pull somebody by, your hand never passes your hip. Ever. Ever. There is no time your hand passes your hip. How many times I went for 6, 7 years teaching right and left through and just thought ladies inherently went to the right when they did a pass-through. Until I realized this clown is pulling by and hanging on for dear life back here, slinging her around behind him. And she can't give the man a left hand for a courtesy turn. She's still in the death throes of this guy that's pulled her by. All right? Don't let your hands pass your hips. If she wants to screw up, let her do it on her own. Don't help her. All right? Emphasize right up front. Before I ever even teach a square through, I tell the men, gentlemen, this is going to feel like a right and left through. It is not. You do not courtesy turn. I have been known to get on my knees and beg them not to courtesy turn on a square through. All right? Because you know it's going to be a problem. And you're going to have that big dirt farmer from out there in Muleshoe, Texas, that ain't tuned into you, and he's going to courtesy turn anyway. All right? And you got to get to him, okay? Because if you can get rid of that problem on a square through, again, the ladies will truck right on through with no problem if this guy don't try to turn her around every time she pulls it by.
On that, Wade, some people have been successful teaching square through first before the right and left through. And it seems to work out pretty good. You know, the traditional way, your list teaches right and left through first. You know, and again, that brings us to the point that we don't have to stick to that. You know, things do change. I just mentioned that.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's you know, whatever it works the best for you. You sit and analyze these things. You say, okay, let's take a look. Maybe we can put these two together because I happen to teach and call those together a lot, so I know a way of putting them together. So make the changes that suit your teaching program. Ocean, by all means, when you teach ocean waves, please, I implore you, teach them that the hands are for identification and courtesy only, that you're dancing with your feet, so that they're moving around that ocean wave using their feet. Now, they will, obviously, you feel a little pressure on your arms but nobody's being slung around, and you don't over swing or over dance. If you'll use those hands for courtesies and for merely for touching, and not for the dancing itself, use your feet for that. And I think you'll find that really will solve a lot of problems. On a Pass the Ocean, I personally don't show my ladies that left hand grab as a crutch until after they have learned that a Pass the Ocean is a pass through, face your partner, step to a right-handed wave. I may do that for a whole night, then next week say, now ladies, I'm going to give you something that'll help you. Now true, we're only teaching one position, all right, but I still want them to learn. Who's what Red said a while ago, he doesn't like the term DBD. I don't like the term DBD, I like the term LBD, learn by definition. If you do, you can dance anyway, all right? But if they learn the definition, not our printed definition, but the interpretation of our printed definition, exactly what it is they're supposed to do. And once the dancer has that down, I don't even consider ABD or DBD or QPD or anything else. I just call, because they know what the definition of the figure is. In Japan, when I was calling there the first time 7 or 8 years ago, I got up in a workshop a little figure with the use of an interpreter, because they didn't understand what a diagonal scoot back under was, and I was doing a squeeze the trigger or something. I taught it from a standard position. I said, this is the definition. Centers do this, ends do this, blah, 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 blah. And I got done, they danced it fine. And my interpreter started to leave. I said, don't go away, I want to teach them from another position. He said, no need, they already know. Once the definition is there, forget it, call it anywhere you want to, because they learn by definition. Our dancers, I would like to learn by definition. And then you have no problem. You call pretty much whatever you want. Let me get on down here, just highlight some of the tough. Emphasize the always. The always moves, and the always definitions. For example, swing through is a good example. From anywhere, anytime. All right, this eliminates the ocean waves and the Alamo rings, everything. From anywhere. Those who can with a right-hand trade, those who can with a left-hand trade. Simple as that. Always, forevermore, never changes. Another example, anytime you hear the word the top, the centers are going to cast 3/4 and the ends are going to push up 1/4 somewhere or other in that thing. All right? When you hear the word spin, now I'm speaking right-handed only, you hear the word spin, somebody's going to turn half by the right. Whether it's a spin chain to gear, spin chain through, spin the top, spin whatever, somebody's going to turn half by the right. You hear the word fan, those centers are going to go 3/4 by the left. Now speaking standard position only. All right? I don't care what it is, fan chain through, fan the top, fan the, I don't care. You have always definitions that don't change, and Lordy, use those always, because there's something the dancer can hang their hat on. And if you say, at always, this never changes, then they can file it away. All right? Now, as Reg a minute ago, don't make a big deal out of the plus, that the fact that it's a plus figure. You got brand new dancers, they don't know a plus list from Adam's house cat and could care less. They want to learn how to square dance. We know it's a plus figure. Big deal. All right? You just teach. That's a suggestion only. Stress position awareness. Stress knowing their position as they get into it. All right? Are you a center? Are you an end? And this is not for benefit of all position dancing or anything else. It's for the benefit of learning to square dance and being aware of where you are. All of a sudden you'll find that people will start squaring off, facing this wall or this wall. They won't be on the bias. How many times you have couples circulate and they don't bend the line, they just kind of lean in that direction because they know you're going to call it next, so they're going to cheat a little, okay? Teach them what a proper position is. This is a two-face line, and this is what it should look like, all right? Once these dancers get position awareness, 99% of the time a dancer breaks down, it's not the figure he's doing he breaks down on. It's the figure just before that left him out of position, all right? So it's like basketball. If you're in the right position, you're going to make the shot. And the same thing here. Teach position awareness. Some of this stuff is, little things like I tell my people that the pass to the center replaces a dive through. Show them why, and the lady doesn't catch the elbow and the eyeball anymore, all right? They're logical things. The difference between, how many times you had a square ready to do a double pass through, but you didn't want double pass through. You wanted the centers to pass through. But you didn't say centers to pass through. You just said pass through. They're going to double pass through anyway. Take it to the bank. Unless, when you get to that point, before you teach double pass through, let me show you the difference between a pass through and a double pass through. They know. Almost anything is easy for anyone if they know how. But crawling for a baby is very, very difficult if they don't know how. And this is the same thing here. Never assume, well, this is too simple, I don't want to insult their intelligence. Doesn't happen. Knowledge can't hurt anybody. Redundant knowledge can't hurt anybody. If they already know it, some of you guys already know this stuff, and I may be boring the heck out of you. You don't have to listen, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because it can't hurt you. It might not help you any, but it sure can't hurt you. All right? Stress toward the center of lines of 4 on wheel and deals. Emphasis, because that's, if they're going to break down on the wheel and deal, that's the reason they're going to break down. Whoever the dominant figure of that couple is going to want to go to the outside instead of going to the inside. True, when we do a pass-through wheel and deal, no problem. But if we end up facing out without that pass-through and say wheel and deal, that center's going to do a cast-off. You can count on it, unless they've been taught that a wheel and deal is synonymous with going into, toward the center of that figure. She ain't shown like I do. I emphasize on a track 2. That 2, and I got to be real honest, I don't teach, but I show them a track 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I show them that a track 1's a quarter tag, and a track 2 is a half tag, and a track 3 is a 3/4 tag, and a track 4 is a full tag, because it corresponds to figures of tag the line. And so I say track 2 means 2 parallel ocean waves, which is a half tag position. Well, okay. And they may fudge a little. They might not know whether they're going left or right, but they will end up in 2 ocean waves. That you can count on, because they know that's where they got to on a track 2. That's a little thing that helps mine. Stress is only one courtesy turn on the teacup chain. And that's your opportunity to really let the ladies shine. Say, ladies, now get that skirt up. Little skirt work. One thing that Tony Oxidine does, which I really love, he'll call a teacup chain or a 4-ladies chain. He's a little skirt work, ladies. And I see ladies, like in Texas, frankly, the skirt work's not taught, very rarely. But I'll see him call, or you say those words, and the skirt will come up. They know how. They just want an excuse to do it. And teacup chain is a good chance to let the ladies really kind of press around a little bit. Emphasizes only one courtesy turn on teacup chain at the end. The rest of the time, the arm turns, and their skirt works, and there's stuff like this, okay? Stress that zoom is a 360-degree rollback, not a cloverleaf. Now, when we're sitting in a double pass-through position, you say zoom, sure, the centers roll back, the ends move up, that's super. Try a double pass-through. Didn't say zoom. The leaders will cloverleaf. You can count it. You end up in a squared set, and it's wrong. Unless you, in the beginning, say, hey, it's a 360-degree rollback. On a flutter wheel, have the boys step up and help the girls, rather than standing there like a lump and making her come by and grab him by the hand and jerk him around to the other side. Help the flow a little bit, all right? Sweep is a couple's move, not an individual move. So you maintain handholds. It's a couple's move. If you show them that, look at your little box of 4, watch it rotate, then they understand, all right? Veer is a sideways. We have 2 sideways moves, veer and dodge, all right? And if you, just again, the always. These are the 2 that always slide left and right, one way or the other. And I try to really emphasize that so that I don't have the problem when I say walk and dodge of that lady going blip in like a scoot back, which we all know they do. Stress, well, I've got in lesson 14, I even stress more position awareness. I try to stress position awareness always, but particularly on circulates. How many times have you ever called at a club that's not your regular club from Standard Ocean Waves and said all 8 circulate and not cringed? You know there's going to be a problem. One of those center ladies, the lady facing out, is going to go the wrong way. It just happens. She's going to flip to the right. Somewhere on that floor, one of those center ladies is going to flip to the right instead of following in the center. We must teach circulates better. Now, what the system I use is what I call footprints, all right, and position circulating. I don't care who's in that spot up there. I look where their feet are, and I'm going that way. Something you might consider this. Another always. Anytime you're facing in, anytime, on a circulate, you go straight ahead. With a split circulate, box circulate, all eight circulate, column circulate. If you're facing into that square, hook 'em. You can never be wrong. You just can't be wrong. That takes care of 50% of my circulates. All I got to work on is those facing out. And make sure they know. Because if you're facing in, just go. Walk straight ahead. You can't miss. You know, unless you go into the next square, you go too far, you can't miss. So it only leaves me half the dancers. Now I got 4 dancers to teach how to circulate, and even I can do that. Okay? But we must teach our dancers to circulate. We have too much choreography that involves some type of circulate. That's where the holdup is. Almost done here now. Stress of the turn through is a forearm that ends back to back and not hanging on like a security blanket. Okay? You do not hang on it. Again, the hand passing the hip. All right? And it is also not a pull-by. Now, if you don't stress the forearm turns on a turn through, they're liable to reach up, you say turn through, and they get a handshake, and they pull straight by. Because the handshake means pull by. But if you tell them you must take forearms, and you've already taught them that a forearm means you got to turn, they got 2 options. Do it correctly or turn 360. And most of the dancers, you're not going to give them that much time. And if they turn 360, you're going to spot it because it's going to take so long for them to do it, you can't miss it. So if you teach them the forearm, they'll turn, and the odds are they'll go to the right place. Then all you've got to teach them is let go. All right? But turn through is another baddie. Emphasize the courtesy turn portion of an 8-chain through. When you pull by and you're the couple facing out, it's a courtesy turn, not a pull by with the left hand. Small point, but it helps. Stress on any spin the top move. You know, any top move for that matter. You always end up with the same person you start with. 3/4 and 1/4 equals 1. And that's 1 whole, and you must end up with the same person you start with when they spin the top. If they're aware of this and you've taught them to dance with their eyes open, no matter what top move you teach from that point on, they go looking for that same body, which means if either the centers or the ends are correct, you got a 50-50 shot. One of them is going to be in the right place, and the other one will catch up. It improves your odds. It improves your chances of that square not breaking down. Centers in is a standalone. Centers in is a figure by itself. All by itself. I don't have to say centers in and cast off 3. I can centers in, you turn back, centers in and tag the line, centers in and smile the wall. It is a standalone figure. All right? The fact it is taught with cast off 3/4 is fine once they know it's a standalone. Emphasize on a cast off that the center is always the person who moves forward, and the end is nothing but a pivot. All right? From any position as long as you live, the center on a cast off 3/4 moves forward around that end. All right? Stress that the Dodgers don't turn around and walk and dodge. We all know that pretty much. And here it comes. The only sexist move that exists. On the call slide through, after the pass-through portion, female babies turn left, male babies turn right, for as long as you shall live, unless you go to Sweden and have a sex change. You will. The female babies turn left, the male babies turn right. It's the only one, for goodness sakes, we got a male-female definition, and yet people throughout the world can't dance slide through. All right, I would suggest that you do that, and the reason I put so much emphasis on its importance. A star through, square through 3, is bad choreography. A star through twice is bad choreography. You haven't used that double hand. But you can slide through is like a key to a master lock. If your dancers can slide through, all of a sudden your choreography just smooths out just like silk. And I promise you, when you get home, unless they're already doing it well, get up and really, really and truly work some slide-throughs. From normal, from half sashayed, whatever. Get those slide-throughs, but just from normal, until they really got it down. And teach them that when you slide through, you don't have to walk 3 feet past each other. That any 2 persons slide through with each other are going to end up holding hands, using the boy's right hand, the girl's left hand, forever. And get slide through down. Then call your next tip. And don't use no star-throughs. Just substitute slide-throughs. And watch the difference in the flow of your floor. It'll just be just like silk. Because they aren't having to use those same hands over and over and over. Start-through has its places, no question. Particularly on a weak floor. Because the more hands you can use, the more secure they are. But for smooth choreography, the slide-through is a beautiful tool. I wish we had it. All right? Stress that fold is into a position, into a brand new position. Now, I said a while ago we have 8 positions on the floor. But a fold is into a new position. If I'm standing here and my lady is standing there, we're occupying 2 positions. If she folds, she has to step in front of me, she's into a new position. That position didn't exist before. Right? It's not like a run where you run into a previous position. For example, emphasize on a run that when the boys run, the lady has to slide over because there's only 2 positions. He's not running around her. He's running into her position while she slides over into his. Please stress the importance of tag the line. The whole square is geometrically based on tags. All right? For example, 2 parallel ocean waves. The name of that position is a half-tag position. All right? An ocean wave in the center between 2 couples is the quarter tag position. An ocean wave in the middle between 2 couples facing out is the 3/4 tag position. A completed double pass-through is a full tag the line position. Stress the importance of tags and that they know it. Stress how small a movement they make on a hinge. These little hinge quarters, I tell them it's a grunt. And you're there. That's all a hinge is. I stress the 4 parts and the no-hands portion of a load the boat will help. Stress, please, the no-hand portion on a recycle. A recycle is the end facing out, do a cross fold, and the centers roll and follow. Nobody says you reach across her chest and pull her hand across. And the first time a guy does, and I've seen it happen, and the lady happens to be well endowed and very sensitive, and he rakes his hand across her chest, and she knocks him upside the head once, he won't do that again. You don't reach across and grab that lady's hand and spin her around. The end does a cross fold, the centers roll and follow. If you stress that no hands, again, it smooths you out. That's, again, I'm sure just 90% of that you guys already know, already heard, but they're there. They're things that, the problem spots that I've found that I thought might help. Okay? It's your turn. I'm dry.
You about said it all, I think. One thing that I just throw out has been helpful to me is that to use a demonstrating square on the difficult moves. Sometimes that'll shorten your teaching by quite a bit. Just take a minute, have a square go through that figure by seeing it. Some people learn better through visual, seeing something, than they do from hearing you talk about it. And it's kind of hard to talk through some figures to new dancers. They're not hep on the terminology yet, and you just throw it in without thinking about it sometimes. But just show me, and then it seems to just straighten out a lot of things for some people. But, basically what we're all talking about, I'm sure most of you guys are already doing that have been calling a while. But I know that I learn something every time I sit down in a session. And the ones that don't, they're not paying much attention. Because you can always learn. As long as you're going to call, you can learn. There's not going to be any end to it. I don't have anything more. I think we've kind of...
Basically, the point we try to make is that in some areas, it is useful and is necessary. And it can be taught in 25 weeks if you know your material and you know what you're doing. Now, and the third point is if you don't need it in your area, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, all right? But if it is a little bit broke, there's another tool that you can use that will get, for example, in Houston, Texas, to ask that population with so much going on there to give me 41 weeks of their life, I am whistling Dixie. I am wasting my time. There's too much to do. But if I can come up and say, in less than 6 months, I'll have you square dancing, I got a shot. I got a shot. Okay? And this is why I need it. Whether it's these figures, I don't care what assortment of figure it is, as long as that particular assortment of figures is actually being used. My main criteria is, and this is what the big call came for last year, give us something we can teach in 25 weeks that's realistic that will have the people dancing. Because the dancers in a lot of these metropolitan areas and some other areas are not going to give you more than 25 weeks of their life to learn how before they start actually participating. Again, along with this, on the spots where Red has had reviews and all, give these people as much dance time as you can give them. I noticed one February in San Jose, California, which they do an incredible job of teaching. They go for a full year out there. There were 31 beginner hoedowns in that association area in the month of February alone. That's what you need. Get them on the floor. Get them dancing. Then, if you can do